there are three things at least we observe in the data that we are in aggregate that we use to even inform our own set of policies. The first is what you referenced, which is there is this what I would call paranoia around productivity, right? Every boss thinks that somehow they're not being as productive. Every person working thinks that they're burnt out. So there is this dichotomy of at least how people feel. And I think the only way out of that is to have data, right? Not dogma, which is, ultimately we are all going to be responsible for the outcomes. And if we're managing to the outcomes, then we'll be better off. So that's sort of one side of it. The second thing I'd say is we also all have to recognize that people come for other people, not for policy. Just because I said that everyone needs to be at work, it's just not going to matter. But I think we all have to learn some new soft skills as leaders and managers where convening people, like if I say I have a meeting or I have an event, and make that event exciting. I think I say like the new management technique is all of us are event managers. And I think that's so we'll have to learn many new soft management techniques in order to get people to connect with people, because it's important.
So go ahead, finish your
thoughts. And then the last thing I'd say is even recruitment, right? Which is one of the things that it's fascinating to see. Like people want to feel connected to the company, its culture, and also feel that they're making progress. And so we have to go back in the last 3 years. A lot of what we assumed was happening on campus, so to speak, it was implicit. Now you have to make it explicit, like what training, the connection with the managers. All of those things are really things where both digital tools and explicit management time would be required.
So if I were a senior executive at Microsoft and you were my direct supervisor, how often would you want to see my face in person?
As often as I wanted to. But the thing that is the key, I think. It's like, for what purpose? In fact, I think we're all increasingly, when you ask somebody, where are you traveling to? People think about, like, what am I traveling for? What is the purpose? If I come into work, what do I want to do? So I think being a little more deliberate about things that you do while exercising your flexibility, I think is what's going to have to happen.
And one other point on this for you as a boss, I think one of the complaints you hear, put the productivity thing to the side, is it's harder to know what everybody's doing, harder to have that sense or to measure some of those things. And of course there are intangibles that you can't quite measure with data exactly. So do you feel that tension and stress because you've got a more diffuse organization with people in different locations?
The biggest, interesting to your point, I think you're right in saying that the productivity data, in fact, I see, like when I'm on a Teams meeting, I actually meet more people than in a physical meeting, because guess what? I can click on their profile. I know who they are. I can go to their LinkedIn profile. I look them up. I know more, and more people in chat on Teams are commenting in addition to what somebody's speaking. So in some sense, the multimodal side of it, I miss it sometimes in in-person meetings. That doesn't mean the in-person meeting doesn't have its own advantage, which is I have a side conversation. I walk out with somebody from a meeting. So I think we're all learning how to use both these sets of capabilities and tools to maximize. And I don't think it's one versus the other. So I don't think there's any going back to 2019. But at the same time, it's not like we're going to be working as if we're in 2020. And I think that combination is what we're all trying to crack. If you go back to something like business process reengineering in the early 90s, it was very important to have essentially a management doctrine even, in order to help people deploy the ERP systems and what have you. So the question is, what is the sophistication of the sort of modern work doctrine, so to speak, that is much more widely spread across all teams? And so that's, I think, what everybody's understanding. And this is where the complexity here is we have refined, as somebody said, the best collaboration tool we all developed is the workplace. For 200 plus years. And so to suddenly say, let's go add to it is sort of a tough challenge. And so, but that's the challenge, I think. We have to learn the management techniques, like even how to hold a meeting going forward, where there are 2 people remote and 9 people, say, in the meeting. The expectations of those 2 people are very different today than they were 2 years ago. They're not going to deal with anything second class. And so if you as a leader don't have the skills on how to incorporate them appropriately, you're going to have a bad meeting. And so I think that understanding, like, it's not like the thing that you learn when you join, but I think people who are growing up as leaders today and, workers today are going to learn that inherently. And so it's a generational change.
I have a question. What do you think will be the impact of GPT on newspaper, in particular on the Wall Street Journal?
I think they'll be able to write great articles going into the future using GPT.
I think we all know that currently no news organization relies on formula writing at all. So
I'm neutral to it, right? Which is it's a technology that has a set of use cases, and we support it today. And even a distributed database is a good thing. It has its uses. I think the entirety of that space we have not yet found, like in the context, the difference between, I would say, all this Web3 and AI, and quite frankly, even metaverse, is all of these three things are all going to happen, but you need to have the killer apps. What is the use case that gets broad adoption? What's the ChatGPT moment on blockchain? When I first sort of got to know the web, it was through, the Mosaic browser. I think all of us remember, I think at least the difficulty I have in some of these other technologies, what's the moment? Like even on the metaverse, that's why I'm very, very keen, even at WFH, we're, the global collaboration village and mesh, that's the stuff, right? Which is if we can start saying, hey, this is just the next generation of presence. Here is how teams will evolve to include more presence, and then we're all using it and it's mainstream, then we'll know that moment has arrived. So I think we have to keep pushing. I believe in all of these technologies, and it's up to us on the technology side to make it more real for more people.